Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Faith Homestead Podcast. I'm Sarah,
And I'm Matt.
and we welcome you today. So, today we're going to be talking about homeschooling, why we've chosen homeschooling, and what homeschooling means to us. We've been getting a lot of questions on our social media platforms about this. I am new to homeschooling, so we're going to talk about that. And if we can help you in your decision, we would be so happy to do that. So, if you could just take a minute, like, share, and subscribe where you're watching, and we thank you for joining us today. So we have been homeschooling just since September, kind of like a preschool homeschooling. Our son has just turned 5, but he's been showing a lot of readiness, and he is reading, and he's doing a lot of higher math than what his age would require. And so a couple years ago, we had talked about what would it look like if I started homeschooling and left my career as a nurse, and how would that be for our family? And so a lot of prayer, a lot of talking to each other. We decided that homeschooling would be something that we would try, and we would give it a go for the elementary years and to see if that would be something that would work for us. And so we're being very kind of, I would say, lackadaisical right now, because technically my son just turned 5. He isn't even technically needing to go to school until this coming September. Actually, in the state of Pennsylvania, really 6. So we have some time, but it's been good for us to kind of pick out some curriculum, to test it out, to see what works, what doesn't work. And so we've been doing really good, and it's been such a blessing that I've been able to stay home to do that. And we're just going to talk to you a little bit about that today. So do you want to kind of bring up like why we really felt the pull from the Lord to start homeschooling?
Absolutely. It's something that I think we saw looking at the educational system, um, seeing what was going on in the public schools.
Yeah.
Um, when the national education director came out saying parents don't have a say in what their kids are taught, um, it really accelerated our thinking on whether we were going to send our children to school or be doing homeschool. And um, it really did accelerate that entire process. And so once that started to crumble, then the decision became a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think for us, we really we're not these people that just like want to live under a rock and want to keep our children, suppressed to only learn certain things. And there is a stigma around, I feel like, around Christian households
Hmm.
that we're just gonna teach our kids about God and the whole rest of the world doesn't exist. Well, that is something that we don't agree with. We want our kids to have a worldly experience. And it's really funny too, because of course, if you are listening, you know that the homeschool stigma is that kids that are homeschooled, they get no socialization. They're super weird. I mean, that's just a stigma. I mean, I will admit, growing up, we thought that kids that were homeschooled were weird. They had no socialization, and we were like, we're never doing that. I mean, I remember coming together when we got married. We're like, yeah, we're not homeschooling, and then the Lord changed how we felt about that. And our kids get lots of socialization. They're still, they do dance, they do sports. We have a co-op on Wednesdays that we go to. They have actually a pretty large community of friends, and they do more than I did when I was little. I feel like, I mean, they're 5 and under too, and they're doing. We're moving around a lot during the week, so that's really great. But I think too is for us, like our son Thomas is, he's a little bit more advanced for his age, and I knew that if we put him into a kindergarten class in the public school system, that it would just be playing, because he already, I mean, we're working on multiplication, and I'm not like forcing my kid to, or we're not forcing our children to, like, you need to, be 15, levels ahead of other kids, but he just wants to do that. And so we knew that at this point, especially, like, there's no going back. Like, he loves homeschooling. He's reading. I mean, Matt works with him every night, and what were you telling me last night that he was doing?
So we have a book that he goes through and he's sounding out words, and we typically do around 10 words each night.
Mm-hmm.
And the night before last, we got through 50 words, simply because he kept showing interest, and I can tell when he starts to lose interest, when he starts to, the 5-year-old brain really ramps up. But
Mm-hmm.
we really just we let him go and see
Yeah.
how far he wants to go with it. And we got to 50 words.
At like 9:30 at
And at
night.
night, yeah, it was late. It was 9 o'clock at night. So um it just it's fun to watch,
Yeah.
and not really put the restrictions
Mm.
on it as much. If there are things that he really does take an interest to, we can expand
We
on
can
those things a
foster
little bit
that.
more.
That's really important. I think too, for us, every child that someone has is going to be completely different. And a lot of people say like you need the structure of the public school system, but no, like it's really great that my one son, he wakes up at like 7 in the morning and comes downstairs and he wants to start schooling. And my daughter likes to sleep, and it is statistically proven that girls need more sleep. Their bodies need more sleep. You can go look it up anywhere. It is a statistical fact. And so when she sleeps till 8, 8:30, like that is wonderful that I can allow my daughter to get that extra rest that she needs, and she doesn't have the constriction of, being out waiting for a bus at a certain at 6:30 in the morning and being in a chair all day. My kids get to, we something that is also really awesome that I've learned this year about homeschooling is it's not 6 to 8 hours. My children, I mean, at their age level, it is 2 hours, 2 to 2.5 hours of homeschooling, and they're getting more than they need and more than they would get in a public school situation because it's one on one. Another thing too is when they get older, it doesn't really go up to more hours. 4 hours is like way plenty for children that are in high school, and so it's really wonderful that that time can be we can work on school in the morning, and by 11 o'clock our children are outside playing, or we're baking, or we're doing all these things, or we're just going on trips and going to museums. It's really wonderful freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I pulled a couple of verses that I thought really laid out this concept, and I think helped us in that decision as
Mm-hmm.
well. Proverbs 22:6 says, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." And that's something that I think is important, that we show them the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because the public education system is there doesn't mean that it is the right way for every child. Um, Being able to cater to what their needs are, if there are subjects that are harder, being able
Mm-hmm.
to spend that time there rather than, keep up or you're left behind
Yes.
mentality in school, it really does allow us that flexibility. With our oldest son, picking up words that he's probably above what his school level would
Yeah.
be. We can do that. We can spend that
Mm-hmm.
time there, and we're not only focused on here's what you have to know for this period right now because this is the way the education system says it.
Yeah.
Um, Another one that I think is it's important. So Proverbs 19:18 says, "Discipline your children, for that there is a hope. Do not be a willing party to their death." And I
Amen.
think that the discipline, again, it's a lot of what we preach around here
Mm-hmm.
in the self-reliance mindset, that preparedness mindset. It's discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those foundational concepts playing into how we're educating as well is just helping to foster that growth from an educational standpoint for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we say discipline too, I feel like that's another stigma with Christian families is like, it's, you're just it's super strict, like there's no wiggle room. We discipline very gently. And our children aren't even it isn't even difficult because they just know their expectations at this point. I mean, we struggle a little bit with our daughter who is 3 because she just is very very spirited. But she like it's so rewarding, and we say this all the time. It's so rewarding when we like, for example, she had dance class on Thursday, and we talked about this when I was on my way home from dance class. But we had a rough day. She was just, she was not listening, and she was in timeout quite a bit on Thursday. But when we got to dance class, we practiced on the way to dance class. So Josie, what are we gonna do? We're gonna listen to my teacher. If your teacher says to stand on the line, are you going to stand on the line, or are you going to go with your other friends and go just do dance in circles? She's like, I'm going to stand on the line and listen to my teacher. And we practice and we talk about it. And when she got to dance class and her class was 3 and 4 year olds, she was the only one that listened the entire 45 minutes. And she was being praised by her teacher. She was getting more actually one-on-one like dance teaching because the other kids were just not, they were running back to their parents, and which is totally typical behavior for a 3 year old. And we're not saying it's not. Every child that was in that dance class, their behavior was age appropriate. But it is so rewarding to just work on these disciplinary steps with our child. And the whole time I had my son, and I had my 18-month-old with me too, and I was able to focus on my youngest son and not have to worry about Jocelyn coming in and asking for water or asking for snacks or crying because she didn't want to listen. It makes every moment of parenting worth it when your child is in public and they are doing exactly what you have taught them to do. Right. And it's amazing. And I also wanted to touch on earlier, you mentioned how like the public school system and the no student left behind thing. Well, guess what? I was left behind. My public education was so terrible that I didn't even feel like I had an education until I got to college. And I had to basically completely teach myself how to learn, what my learning style was. My education was in college, and it took me 7 years to go to college because I had to go, very slow, class at a time. And then I finally got my bachelor's degree in nursing, but I did not have an education. The only education that I feel that I have right now is my nursing education. My K through 12 education, I mean, basic, obviously I know how to read and write and things like that, but I don't remember anything. And, I was talking to Matt about history. I am so bad with geography, with history, with dates of wars. And I am very thankful that we are homeschooling because Matt will be able to help us with that. And the beauty of homeschool is that I can teach the things that I'm confident in during the day. And then after dinner, we can have an hour of homeschooling in the evening where Matt is able to teach our children the things that he is strong in. And that's just the beauty of homeschool. And I'm really excited about this journey that we're going to go on.
And I think that's something that's important when we look at homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
The parents need to be on the same page with
Yeah.
what our strengths, what our weaknesses, and then how are we preparing, and part of that is planning lessons where if there's something that I'm not overly confident in but needs to be taught, I am able to actually go in and prepare a lesson, which not only helps them but is helping me.
Yeah, absolutely. And the beauty of homeschool too is if there's something that we are just both very uncomfortable with, either we can learn that subject or we can look for other outside resources to help our children with that. And I want parents, there's a huge stigma that parents just can't do it, but you really can. And there's so much help out there. You can do some online. You can look for outside resources on some things. The world is like your oyster. There are so many opportunities for homeschooling. And my friend Nadine actually is really who has helped me with homeschooling immensely. And you can check out her website. It's homeschoolwithflair.com. And I'll link that in the description. If you need any help with homeschooling, if you need someone to talk to, she's a great coach and she will really be able to get you on your journey. So some other things I want to talk about is just, with talking about self-reliance and discipline, it's really important that you teach your children the fundamentals in the home. What are they doing when they're not, if you are sending your kids to public school, which is totally fine. It's just not for us, but it is definitely for others. We totally agree that any type of schooling is something that you need to be prayerful about, and that is totally fine for your household. But if you're sending your kids to school in a public situation or you're homeschooling, when you're not homeschooling or your children are not in school, what are they doing? Are your children on the internet nonstop? Are they on social media platforms? Are they playing video games? Do you know what they're watching? Are they outside doing chores? Like, what are you having your children do? Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. And I think this is really where my self-reliance Sunday
perfect
tidbit comes in here.
Great segue.
We need to be there for our children. Okay. I think that it's essential that we are present for our children. Sarah mentioned, the phones and the social media apps and the gaming.
It's scary.
We can't expect our children not to do those things when we are doing it, and it's becoming such a focus in our
Hmm.
lives that we're spending more time in a social media app than we are interacting with them,
Yeah.
right? If they see you with the phone in your hand all the time, they're going to do it.
Hmm.
um
I have to step in real quick. We were just at church earlier today, and our son, who's 18 months, was in daycare. Was in the nursery with my friend Susie, who was watching the kids, and she said to me, she's like, your son Jacob, he is so quick. I turned my back for 1 second, and he just grabbed my phone and like ran into the corner with it and crouched down and was like tapping on it. And I was like, you know what? It's really funny that you say that, because we do not let our kids. I mean, they obviously they see us. Everybody, all children see their parents on their phones at some point. But we don't allow our kids to touch our phones. Like, they're not like from infants, they're not allowed to like play with our phones.
Mhm.
And so Jacob knows that he's not allowed to do that, and he saw that phone on the floor and he grabbed it and ran, because it's just so funny. Even at 18 months, he knows like he's not supposed to have that. So I mean, and he sees adults on it. He sees me and Matt on our phones, and he's like, I want that
Mhm.
cool thing that they're holding. You know what I mean? So
And I mean, these things are designed to be simple enough that children can operate them.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, the reality of it is that the educational level required to get an iPhone to open up is not there, and
No.
you can go down all those different pathways.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's important that we engage our kids in our activities.
Mm,
Um, when I was building the shelf after we had the shelf collapse a couple
yeah.
weeks back, my oldest was there helping me, and while he didn't like it because he didn't like the noise that
Mm,
the drill made,
no.
he was there, seeing what I was doing. And while he might not be engaged in that the entire time, we stayed engaged as long as he could tolerate at
Yeah.
5. um
When he's going out to the chickens with you, and he helps us with the dog, and
yeah, and giving him some chores that are age appropriate,
hmm,
that he can be involved, and understanding the needs that the house has to operate daily.
yeah. And that's another thing I want to touch on, because this is a conversation that's going to come up in everybody's household. If you have little ones and you're going to expect your little ones to contribute and help with chores, this is probably a conversation that's going to come up. And we've talked about it a little bit, but I actually firmly believe that children should not really have an allowance, because I don't get an allowance for making sure that everybody's fed and that the beds are made and the laundry is done. And Matt doesn't get an allowance for emptying the dishwasher or mowing the lawn. And so our kids need to understand that they are part of a household, and to make this household function, they need to put it in their they need to pull their
Hmm.
weight and contribute. So I'm not against giving children money for additional tasks, like if Matt's working on a car and Thomas is 8, and like Matt really needs help, and that's not a typical chore that he is responsible for. Like, Matt might give him $5 and be like, I really appreciate you helping me today. But even then, the car is something that they need to be transported, and so really you wouldn't even have to do that. But it's really good to not have children just expect that they're going to take the trash out and get $2 and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we need to be the role model for our
Yeah.
children. We set an expectation for them, but we have to surpass that expectation
Yes,
if
ourselves.
we expect them to actually meet what we're putting out there for them,
Hmm.
right? So they are always watching, they're always listening, they're always absorbing what we are what we are doing on a daily basis.
Hmm.
um, I'm consistently amazed that the kids will come up with something that I said months prior
Yes.
that they weren't even involved in what I was doing, but still heard it and
Yep.
can repeat it back.
Hmm.
um, and I think that that's part of the idea of self-reliance, right? If we
Yep.
want our children to come along on this journey with us, we need to set that expectation for them, but we need to surpass it ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah. So
um,
there's actually this quote that by Frederick Douglass and Frederick Doyle's, and
that was
it's
Frederick
Douglass.
Douglass.
Okay, I wrote it down silly, but it says it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And I think all of this that we've talked about today ties into that one quote, because I mean, if we like, there's a saying too about the strong men. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. What's that quote? Do you have it?
Hard times create strong men, and strong men create good times. Good times will create weak men, and weak men will create hard
So where do
times.
you think we're at right now with that?
Well, I think with a lot of things that are going on in our world today, weak men are being created. I think that's why even having this podcast is a
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
Being self-reliant, being able to take care of not only yourself but your family, being the protector as a man that you're called to be. Those those characteristics, those bases for being, self-reliant are disappearing.
Yeah. And we're feeling called to just kind of teach people and inspire people that you are able to change your trajectory. We are seeing in this world right now that people are just so heavily dependent on everybody but themselves. I mean, everywhere you turn, people are dependent on, their parents or the government or someone else to help them or to feed them or to clothe them. And you are fully capable to do this yourself. And I understand, like, times might be hard and you might be facing situations that are just even out of your control, but you are able to claw your way back up. I mean, we have. When I met Matt, we were like both like living in apartments. Like we had no money. I mean, no food, and we just have worked over years and years to get our educations and to get our jobs. And I'm so blessed to right now be able to be home with our kids. But I know that if times get even harder and the price of bread goes up to like $10 a loaf, I might have to go back to work in the evenings as a nurse but it's great because I'm able to do that because I have an education. And if you're blessed enough to be home with your kids right now, savor every moment because times are hard and they may get harder. But I think with that quote that it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men, it really starts in the home. And it is our duty as parents to raise successful children that know how to live once they leave our nest.
Absolutely. First Timothy 4:12 says, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." I think we set the example for our children, and then we set the foundation for which they grow on.
Amen.
And I think it's important, and it's a great verse to help inspire your children along the way as well, letting them know that they are an example, when they're interacting with other children, that they need to set the right example for not only the expectations that we have for them, but they're the example that the other kids are going to be looking at, whether they know it or not.
Yep.
Um, and I think it's a great way to kind of boost them up a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because you're young doesn't mean that you're no one has to listen. No one has to be. They need to be. They need to be that higher level. And whether they're being sent to schools, whether they're being homeschooled, the the parents and our role is so important
Mm.
in that education and that learning. They need to learn more than what a school is going to teach them. They
Yeah.
need to learn skills to be successful in life.
Yeah.
And as the parents, being there, being present, being a part of that for them, it's extremely important.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end today. And just want to let you guys know that it's on us. We are in charge of the future and the success of this generation that we are raising. And it starts in the home and it then moves on. Okay. So just do your best to try to foster a healthy relationship with the Lord and your kids, help foster a respectful and fruitful relationship with your children and you. And we have hope that we can get back to a strong generation of, God-fearing children. We hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday and go Eagles. Bye-bye.